What is Kominsky Method with the Netflix idea that everybody can watch this? I was talking to Chuck Lorre, who created it, about that whole concept that they can sit down and see the entire show. It's not like when you did Streets of San Francisco or any network TV.
Well, it's a really exciting opportunity and venture. It makes a lot of sense when you think about it. The first thing I wasn't sure is you're so used to series, once a week and sort of doling them out. Yeah. But Netflix, just this bookending them and having your whole, releasing your encyclopedia set, on one day is incredible. But I mean, part of that has to do with Netflix. Last figures I saw was $15 billion in licensing fees and production costs us last year. I looked at the calendar, they literally are introducing something almost every single day. Yeah. They have a new show going on. So the response that I've gotten, quite honestly, on Kominsky Method has been stronger than anything I've ever done before. Wow. So although they're not giving us figures, something leads me to believe, I've had some pretty big hits in my time, but I haven't had more people talk about the Kominsky Method worldwide, that they're doing pretty well.
Wow, that really is amazing. I heard Sandra Bullock say that too. She had a movie over at Christmas, and they did release figures on that because it was some astronomical thing that people are seeing this. It's a communal experience, right? Different than sitting in a movie theater, but they're sort of sitting in a communal thing around the world.
Well, I mean, that part of it too, and then binge watching. Mm-hmm. They have the joy of saying, well, let me try it out. I'll try it out for a half-an-hour episode, and the next thing, what the hell, 4 episodes is just as long as a movie, so why don't I see 4, and then I see all 8 of them. Yeah. So they digest it quite quickly, but the enthusiasm, we just finished our second season now, but the enthusiasm there is for it is exciting, and it's fun, and just realizes there's not... Two things happen. One, of course, there's not a lot of actual entertainment for older people, for the out-the-cockers, so to speak. So you have this huge audience, which are your television audience, not going out to theaters per se, who are thinking, thank God there's something I can watch. Right. And then the other phenomenon, which I can't understand, is there's a whole young audience who loves the show. Mm-hmm. And I think the only thing I can get out of it is that the show is written so well and the humor is so good that younger people just are fascinated to see that, oh, old people are funny too, I see, or I get that. It's sort of like you go off in Neverland. And so I think they're sort of, or enjoying the whole thing of buddy relationships. But a lot of my son's friends and everything too like it a lot.
I can't get around the fact that this is Michael Douglas saying old people are funny too. I don't think of you as old.
Oh, well.
Your father's still going strong.
Well, everything's in proportion, Very kind of you, but we're moving right along.
From a producer's point of view, it's a better deal, right? I mean, put your producer's hat on here. This has got to be a time saver and...
You mean a digital?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You can... everything you can. Steven Soderbergh is the best example of that. Steven shoots his own stuff too, but he sits there in between shots on his little laptop, and by the time you got your makeup off and gone home, he's already got the day's film edited. Yeah. Digitally edited and everything else, a rough take to what you have. So I think it speeds up the whole post-production process, and it makes it financially more feasible for young filmmakers to get things done. Again, Steven, for instance, he just shot a series on an iPhone.
I know. I feel like I can be a filmmaker now.
Exactly, but it's good. So a lot of people feel that way, you know, and so it's very it's a good time.
He shot Behind the Candelabra, which won you an Emmy as Liberace. And what was that experience like as an actor for you, working with someone that's digitally savvy?
He was fun. We went back actually to Traffic, and we did the movie Traffic together. That was my first time when I met him, and he said, "Can I show you your dressing trailer, your trailer?" I said, "Yeah, sure, you can show me. Well, look, let's go see your trailer." So he walked, he went down. I said, this is the trailer. He said, well, this is your trailer. I said, good. He said, well, take a look at it. I said, okay, because that's the last time you're going to see it. And the fact is that he goes so fast, you know, that there just never was any time to go back to the trailer.
That's a brilliant introduction to an actor on a Soderbergh set. I love that.
Good.
You just did your first superhero movies, 2 of them.
I did.
Ant-Man.
Now this has been as I'm about to come into the my 3rd quarter century. On the planet. I've had these 2 wonderful experiences. One was working in the Marvel world, which I had not done any green screen stuff before, and really was fascinated and wanted to do that, and was very respected about how much more difficult it was than I thought it was, with all that make-believe stuff and just nothing there, and that's really acting, you know. Literally, they show you a picture of what it's going to look like behind you or in front of you, and then kind of get out there in front of that. And then here with the Kominsky Method, in trying to do comedy, yes, I've had a couple of times over my career, but it's always something that's really fascinated me, and to be able to work with, you know, people like Chuck Lorre and Alan Arkin, people at the top of their comedic games, has been really a treat.
This is like repeatable stuff for these characters too. Ant-Man's had sequels. You were actually briefly in the biggest movie ever right now, Avengers Endgame.
I have to keep remembering that. I can tell my grandchildren and everything else I'm in the biggest movie of all time.
Isn't that amazing? I mean, it's exciting. But in your career in the movies, you rarely did sequels. Romancing the Stone you did. You know, you stayed away from what seems to be the industry norm now.
Right.
If it works once, do it 12 times. Was that on purpose? You just didn't want to?
Yeah, I never thought there was, you know, reason to do sequels. I mean, they did one for Wall Street.
Yeah.
So those
many years later.
Many years later. And yeah, I would like to think that, you know, we had something just fresh, and I didn't really kind of count on sequels or doing commercials, you know. So.
That's rare, you know. Big stars doing commercials. Now we see it.
Now
you know.
I know. I still don't I can't do that. You know, I don't get there yet.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, I just don't think about it much, you know, about doing sequels.
Yeah. What about this character of Sandy that you play in Kaminski? I mean, to want to get into a series, you got to play this guy over and over, and it's such an interesting character. He's an acting coach, but he's dealing with all sorts of things in his life. And I think when you talk about young people being interested, he's dealing with a class there that is considerably younger and is sort of at odds generationally here.
Yeah, he's discovered that he's a good teacher. Maybe it's like he likes to pontificate, but he has some pretty good advice, both about life and I think, you know, there's a what's that expression about unsolicited advice can be seen as a hostile gesture.
Yeah.
So I think he's realized in a classroom it's a way of giving advice and talking, but being seen in a positive, constructive fashion. And so whereas other parts of his life have not worked out the way they wanted to, both his career and his marital status has not been quite as successful by any means as he would like it to do. He hangs on now to this part of his life with this studio he has, and with his class and the good work that they're doing, and his best friend.
So,
Norman.
Does Sandy have acting advice for Michael Douglas that you've learned from that you can take to heart here?
Well, I mean, you do, whether you actually act on it or not is another question. Listening is so important. You know, a lot of times actors are always preparing to act.
Right.
You know, rather than taking that moment to kind of listen to what's being brought in. But for me, comedy is this nebulous thing. Is very difficult for me. I watch Alan Arkin with great admiration, with the simplicity of his delivery and his sense of timing. and we've had a couple other wonderful comedian actors with us in the second season, and timing really fascinates me, and people have a comedic timing and how they have it, and whether you can learn it or not, or whether you inherently have it.
It's interesting because I've seen you do comedy, obviously, and you're wonderful. Sometimes it is the actors. You're opposite Alan Arkin here, and you just feed off each other. You and Kathleen Turner clearly did that.
I'm more comfortable with physical comedy.
Yeah.
As some people know, than I necessarily am with words and knowing how to do the delivery on proper line readings. Right. Physical comedy, I'm a little more comfortable with.
Yeah. Because comedy is fun. I mean, but as you say, it's
well, it is.
Fun.
I mean, and this is I always go back to the thing. Don't we all cherish a funny friend?
Right.
I mean, we all cherish that guy we have. I mean, and the one thing about acting classes was, when you're doing scenes or improvising stuff, you always go for the drama. It's always easy to create conflict.
Yeah.
Not so easy to create a laugh. I just had the joy of my acting teacher, who I took classes from 50 years ago, was just honored. His name was Win Handman. He was just honored at the Tribeca Film Festival. Oh, yeah. Bobby De Niro and I had an evening. They did a documentary about him, and it was called "It Takes a Lunatic," and it was. I did get a lot of echoes as I was thinking about it. He's a wonderful, wonderful guy, but flying without a net a little bit. He has an element of just wanting to take chances. Anyway, he's 97 years old and he's still teaching.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It is.
And when you're looking at that documentary and all of that, and you're going back and remembering those life lessons?
Our set in the Kominsky Method looks very much like the room that we worked in, the rehearsal hall that I worked with him. Same chairs, exactly the same chairs.
Wow.
So it's a lot of good memories.
Of course, you were unique. Well, you won a Golden Globe as Most Promising Actor 50 years ago for Hell Hero.
You did your homework. Yeah.
I know this, and you won a Golden Globe for the Kominsky Method.
Yeah.
You got two bookends there that really are,
And that's where they're sitting, man. Either end of a long shelf. So.
I know, long shelf of awards. We know you've won a lot as a producer and an actor and all through, but that, is something, and you obviously grew up in this. Was it always something you were going to do because your father?
No. I had no problems. My mother was an actress too, more theater, and I had no intention, no desire of being an actor. I was to be a lawyer, this or that. And I went to kind of private schools, boarding schools back East Coast. I was going to go to Yale. Yeah. And then, I was getting close to that. Going through your college advisory thing, and I was a tight ass. I was really a bit of a tight ass at the time. And so I remember going to my college advisory guy, and he reminded me of a travel agent. He had these brochures, he was going through I said, wait, stop there. No Ivy League, no nothing. It's a picture of a guy walking down the beach in a surfboard with two girls, and this was 1963. Yeah. With two-piece bathing suits. Yeah. You never saw a two-piece bathing suit when you were back east. So, well, I want to go there, man. For the University of California at Santa Barbara, and I went out there in the 60s and became a hippie and had a wonderful, wonderful time. And finally, it was my junior year, and they called me in, and they said, Michael, you got to declare a major. You're in your junior year of college. I don't know, man. I don't know. And so I said, I guess I'll do theater. And so just started painfully, terrible stage fright. Used to have a wastebasket. I get sick on it. And Dad was so relieved. He came up early and saw me. He said, you were terrible. You were just terrible. So I thought that was it. And then it just kind of, I don't know what kept me going. I just grounded away, grind, and just... slowly got better at it. And then I guess my big breakthrough was somebody earlier in my career said, the camera can tell when you're lying.
Oh.
So the camera, the camera can tell when you're lying. And so I had a whole period of just, method acting and just scratching myself, just getting down to the chord. I think it was as late as Fatal Attraction. And I was preparing for the part, and I said, okay, he's a lawyer. I said, well, I could be a lawyer. I said, it's in New York. I live in New York, and he's an adulterer. Well, I could be an adulterer, And so I said, well, wait a minute. And I said, I don't have to, I can just lie. Acting's about lying.
Yeah.
I lie every day, maybe a little lie or something like that. So that's all really. And once that kind of freed me up to say, like it was the John Lovett's character, the liar. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Yeah,
I think we have a president like that now.
He says anything. That's not. They tell him it's not true. It kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah,
And so that's made the whole process a lot more fun for me.
Yeah, is it? Do you have fun acting? Yeah.
I do most of the time. I do on a show like this because Chuck's in the room, so I don't want to say a lot. But the material's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. So the scripts are excellent. Great casts around that. We're working in this forum, the streaming. No commercials, no worry about language.
Yeah.
So you're making like, a mini movie in 6 days, and you make a bunch of them in the time it would normally take me to do one feature film. So it keeps me on my toes. I'm excited. I'm working with great people, great ensemble, and it's been the biggest thing since digital. I mean, this whole streaming area.
Yeah.
It's also created a total crossover from movie actors into the small screen and so-called broadcast actors who are just so excited and happy to be into streaming. So it's a great time for talent, both behind the camera and in front of the camera. There's so much going on.
Yeah. Do you look back on the films you've done, and I actually have a list of them. I don't need to tell you what you were in, but there's a quote that David Thompson, I don't know if you ever heard this, it's interesting. He looked at your films and he said, his characters are weak, culpable, morally indolent, compromised, and greedy for illicit sensation without losing that basic probity on potential for ethical characters we require of a hero. I thought that was really interesting because you look at the list of films you've done and there's so much complexity there.
Well, that is pretty interesting. I like to struggle with the moral dilemma. I'm of the generation of the gray area. My father was black hats and white hats, good guys and bad guys. And I think probably the Vietnam War, in terms of my growing up, which created this vague question where all of a sudden, after this tremendous effort in World War II, where we were all behind, all of a sudden there were people that didn't want to go there. It was confusing, it was painful. And I think that sort of affected me in the fact of of a moral struggle about trying to do the right thing, but recognizing lasciviousness, recognizing evil as another side, and struggle, and audiences seemed to get behind me on that. Yeah. And it seemed that I was able to have I guess one of my strongest qualities was forgiveness. Mm-hmm. And I remember on Fatal Attraction, when I went off early in the movie and had an affair with Glenn Close, and I came back to my apartment, and then I jumped in the bed and messed up the bed to look like I was sleeping in it. Yeah. And we were looking at a preview of the movie, and the audience laughed. And my producer turned and said, I can't believe it, they forgave you already. So I dined out on that. I dined out on that forgiveness ability, and then I love taking chances. I love to go into dangerous areas and see if I can win an audience back.
Yeah, characters like Gordon Gekko, we see them every day on the news now, and people seem fine.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's true. Absolutely.
Falling Down, one of my favorites, by the way.
That was Ebby Rose Smith. It was going to be a little cable film. I thought it was just a lovely script. And again, it hit a chord.
Yeah.
Because that picture was, I was just after the end of the Cold War. People always think of LA being an entertainment center, but it was really a defense center.
Yeah.
We had a military defense center was in Los Angeles and all that. And here was a patriotic guy who worked hard for our country in the defense area, and we succeeded. And thank you very much. And he was given his pink slip, and he was fired. And with his other problems, it just seemed to strike an interesting chord at that time. So I do enjoy sort of putting characters in very bad situations, difficult situations, and seeing if they can get out of them. But I think what saves me, Peter, is that I'm also a producer. So when I am acting, I am looking at the whole picture. You know, I don't know if that's good or bad. Sometimes I get hurt by it because I'm looking out. I want the thing to be good. I want the movie to be good, the series to be. I want the whole thing to be good. So I know it's only good if everybody else is good.
Yeah.
So sometimes I used to cut myself short as an actor because I was kind of looking out on all the other sides of that. But I think that's why probably I got a pretty good batting average as far as the shows that have worked.
Oh my gosh! Starting, as a producer, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You got that from your father. He gave that to you, right?
Well, he gave me the rights to the book, and then he had adapted the book to go back to Broadway to play, and the play had worked okay. And then he was trying to get it made, and then he was going to sell it, and it took. So
you wound up producing it and not hiring him.
Yeah, I'm still paying for that.
But that's the producer in Michael Douglas.
He said, no. Now you too. I said, well, what happened to the director? I thought that was a director's decision, So I said, my dad, Dad, come on, what happened to the director? Well, the years had passed. He admits, but it was 25 years between when he'd first gone to Broadway and did it. And, we finally got it.
It worked out, though.
It worked out all
for
right.
everybody, and he did pretty well too.
He got more money out of that picture than any project he ever did in his life. I would remind him on it.
There you go. Thank Michael Douglas. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Michael.
Peter. It was nice to talk with you.
Yeah, you too.
Appreciate it.